The cargo hold of the Liberty's Dream hummed with the steady rhythm of deep space travel. Captain Jake Morrison sat in his worn command chair, watching the stars streak past through the viewport. His ship was not fancy or new. It was a working vessel, scarred and patched from years of hauling supplies across the outer colonies. But it was his, and he knew every bolt and wire in her frame. Jake was 38 years old, with gray starting to show at his temples. His hands bore the calluses of a man who fixed his own equipment. He had been in space for 15 years, ever since Earth joined the Galactic Coalition. Back then, everyone thought humans would be just another species among thousands. Nobody expected Earth to be classified as a Class 12 death world. The classification still made him smile. Aliens looked at Earth's gravity, radiation levels, weather patterns, and predator density with horror. What humans considered normal would kill most galactic species within hours. But that was just home to Jake. You adapted or you died. That was the human way. Lisa Chen worked at the pilot station, her fingers dancing across the controls. She was 29, sharp-eyed and quick. She could fly anything with thrusters, and had won more than a few illegal races in her younger days. Now she flew cargo routes and tried to pretend she did not miss the excitement. Ben Rodriguez prowled the engineering deck below, maintaining the ship's aging systems. At 35, he could fix anything mechanical with whatever materials he had on hand. He once rebuilt a fusion regulator using parts from a food processor. His crewmates never let him forget it, especially when the coffee maker broke down the next day. Megan O'Neill served as their medical officer, though on a cargo ship that mostly meant treating cuts, burns, and the occasional broken bone. She was the youngest at 26, fresh from medical school and paying off student loans. She had joined the crew expecting boring runs and quiet nights. She kept hoping for boring runs and quiet nights. The distress signal came through at 0300 ship time. Lisa caught it first, her hands freezing over the controls. The automated alert chimed 3 times, harsh and urgent in the quiet bridge. Jake was there in seconds, still pulling on his shirt. "What have we got?" he asked, leaning over her station. "Distress beacon, Sanctuary 7 research station." Lisa's voice was tight. "They're broadcasting on emergency channels." Jake knew Sanctuary 7, a Thalen research facility, studying stellar phenomena in a quiet region of space. The Thalans were peaceful beings, tall and slender with 4 eyes and gentle dispositions. They were herbivores who had never developed weapons or warfare. Their entire culture revolved around learning and understanding. "Play it," Jake ordered. The message crackled through the speakers. A Thalan voice, high-pitched with terror, spoke in broken Coalition standard. "This is Sanctuary 7. We are under attack. Raiders, Krell Raiders. They have killed our security staff. They are executing researchers. Please, anyone. We have children here. 200 civilians. Please help us." Static swallowed the rest. Lisa replayed it twice more. Each time the desperation in that voice cut deeper. Ben arrived on the bridge, wiping grease from his hands. Megan followed close behind, her medical bag already over her shoulder. They had all heard. The ship's intercom carried everything. "How far?" Jake asked. 3 hours at maximum burn, Lisa replied. Her hands were already plotting the course. Coalition response time? 6 days. Maybe 5 if they scramble immediately. Lisa's jaw clenched. Local security is 4 days out. Nobody else is close. Silence fell over the bridge. Everyone understood the math. The Krell were raiders, slavers, and killers. They struck fast and vanished before help arrived. If they were already executing researchers, they would be gone in hours. Those 200 Thalans would be dead or enslaved. "We can't fight Krell," Megan said quietly. "Captain, I know what you're thinking. But we're a cargo ship. 4 people. They'll have a combat team, weapons. We'd be throwing our lives away." She was right. Jake knew she was right. The Krell were warriors from a species that had mastered raiding and piracy over centuries. They would have at least a dozen fighters, armed and experienced. The Liberty's Dream had emergency sidearms and whatever tools they could grab. It was suicide. Ben spoke up, his voice rough. "I met some Thalans once, at a trading station near Jupiter. They were fascinated by everything, asked a million questions about Earth, about animals and weather and how we built cities. One of them asked if I had children." He paused, looking at his grease-stained hands. "I showed them pictures of my niece. They thought she was beautiful. They wanted to know everything about human families. They said they hoped their children could visit Earth someday. See the oceans." Jake closed his eyes. He had met Thalan children too. They moved like awkward colts, all long limbs and curiosity. They learned languages for fun. They made art and music. They studied the stars not to conquer them, but to understand them. Lisa's fingers moved across her console. "Course is plotted," she announced. "Say the word, Captain." "Lisa," Megan protested. "We need to think about this." "I have thought about it," Lisa replied without turning around. "There are children on that station. That's all I need to think about." Ben nodded slowly. "She's right. We're human. We don't leave people behind. That's not what we do." Megan looked at each of them. She saw determination in every face. These were not soldiers. They were not heroes. They were cargo haulers, mechanics, people who fixed things and flew from place to place. But they were human. And humans had spent thousands of years protecting the weak, fighting the strong, and refusing to back down. She took a deep breath. Okay, we go. But we do this smart. We use everything we have, and we don't die. Because dying helps nobody. Jake felt pride warm his chest. His crew, his people. Lisa, execute the course. Maximum burn. Ben, start going through cargo. I want to know every piece of equipment we can weaponize. Megan, prepare medical supplies and pull up everything we have on Krell physiology. We need to know how to stop them. The ship lurched as Lisa punched the engines. Stars wheeled past the viewport as they came about. 3 hours. They had 3 hours to turn a cargo ship into a weapon and 4 civilians into a rescue team. Jake opened the ship-wide comm. "All hands, this is the captain. We are responding to a distress call. Sanctuary 7 is under attack by Krell raiders. 200 civilians need help. We're going to give it to them." He paused, choosing his next words carefully. "I won't lie to you. This is dangerous. This is way above our pay grade. But those are families on that station, children, and they asked for help. Maybe we're crazy for answering, but we're human. Being a little crazy is what we do best." He cut the comm and looked at his crew. Ben was already heading back to engineering, his mind clearly racing through possibilities. Megan pulled up medical files on her tablet. Lisa flew with steady hands, her expression focused and calm. In that moment, Jake understood something. The galaxy had called Earth a death world with fear and respect. They looked at humanity and saw survivors from a planet that should have killed them. They saw persistence and adaptability. They saw creatures who refused to quit, but they had missed something important. Humans did not just survive. They protected. They saw injustice and could not look away. They heard calls for help and had to answer. It was not logic or strategy. It was something deeper, something written into their bones. The Krell were about to learn what happened when you threatened someone under human protection. They were about to discover why Deathworlders took things personally. The Liberty's dream raced through the void, and in its hold, 4 humans prepared for war. The cargo hold of the Liberty's dream looked like a war zone. Ben had spread equipment across every available surface. Hydraulic lifters, welding torches, maintenance drones, power cells, and industrial tools covered the deck. He moved between them with manic energy, his mind working faster than his hands. Jake stood at the central table, studying schematics of Sanctuary 7 on his tablet. The research station was a wheel design, common for artificial gravity habitats, 3 levels rotating slowly, laboratories, living quarters, and central operations. Simple layout, easy to defend or easy to trap, depending on who controlled the environmental systems. Megan worked at a secondary station, files scrolling past her screen. "Krell physiology," she muttered, reading aloud. "Low-gravity evolution. Fast reflexes but lower stamina than humans. Sensitive to temperature changes. Their homeworld averages 20 degrees Celsius. Comfortable range is narrow. So they don't like it hot or cold," Jake said, making notes. "Very specific comfort zone. Outside that, they experience stress quickly. Also, their vision spectrum is different from ours. They see less in the red range." Megan highlighted sections as she spoke. "Their hearing is excellent, though. Better than human in most frequencies." Ben called out from across the hold. "Got something here, Captain. These loading drones, I can reprogram them. Make them mobile distractions. Add some lights, some noise. The Krell will see them as threats." "Do it," Jake replied. "How many can you convert?" 6, maybe 8 if I strip them down. They won't be armed, but they'll move unpredictably. In a firefight, that might be enough." Lisa's voice came through the intercom. 2 hours, 30 minutes to intercept. "And Captain, I've been thinking. We can't just charge in. They'll blow us apart before we dock. What do you suggest? Jake asked. We broadcast false credentials. There are supply runs to Sanctuary 7 every 2 weeks. We're overdue by 3 days, but that's not unusual in the outer colonies. We come in as a legitimate supply ship. Jake considered it. They'll want to board us. Inspect the cargo. Take us hostage. Exactly, Lisa replied. They'll let us dock. And once we're inside, we control when the fight starts. It was risky, but everything about this was risky. Jake looked at Megan. She gave a small nod. Ben was already grinning, seeing the possibilities. Okay, Jake decided. We're a supply ship. Medical equipment and food supplies. Lisa forged the documentation. Make it look authentic. Ben, make sure nothing in cargo looks military. Megan, prepare sedatives. If we can take them down without killing, we will. The next 2 hours were chaos. Ben converted loading drones into mobile decoys, programming them to move in erratic patterns and make noise. He rigged power cells to overload on command, creating makeshift flashbangs. He took industrial welding equipment and modified it into short-range weapons. Megan filled syringes with fast-acting sedatives calibrated for Krell metabolism. She booby-trapped medical supply crates with compressed air canisters that would explode with enough force to stun. She prepared trauma equipment for human injuries because she was realistic about their chances. Jake studied the station's layout until he had memorized every corridor, every vent shaft, every access point. He pulled up maintenance manuals and learned the environmental systems. Temperature controls, air pressure, lighting, gravity generators. Everything could be a weapon if you knew how to use it. Lisa flew and planned simultaneously. She plotted emergency escape routes. She mapped blind spots in the station's sensor grid. She calculated how long they could stay and still escape if everything went wrong. The answer was not encouraging, but she kept working. An hour before intercept, Jake called them together. They gathered in the hold, surrounded by improvised weapons and reprogrammed equipment. They looked tired. They looked scared. They looked determined. Listen up, Jake began. We're going into this with one advantage. The Krell think they know what humans are. They've read the reports. Deathworld species, strong, tough, dangerous if cornered. But they think that makes us predictable. They think we'll fight like animals, all aggression and no tactics. He pointed at the modified equipment. They're wrong. Humans survived Earth because we're smart. We use tools. We plan, we adapt. Every other species out there evolved to fit their environment. We evolved to change our environment to fit us. That's what makes us dangerous, Megan spoke up. The Krell have probably fought 100 different species, but they've never fought humans in combat. We're an unknown factor. Exactly, Jake agreed. So we use that. We don't fight fair. We don't follow their rules. We do things they don't expect. Ben, you'll access the station's systems as soon as we dock. Take control of everything you can. Environmental controls, doors, sensors. Make the station work for us, Ben nodded. I can route through the docking interface. Most stations have terrible security on their internal networks. The Thalans never worried about cyber warfare. Lisa, once we're inside, you stay with the ship. Keep the engines hot. If we need to evacuate, I want to undock and burn in 30 seconds. Also, if things go wrong, don't wait for us. Get out and call for help. Lisa's expression hardened. Captain, I'm not leaving you behind. You will if I order it, Jake said firmly.
Someone has to survive to tell this story.
Someone has to make sure the Thalans get help if we fail. That's you, she wanted to argue. He could see it in her eyes. But she was also a professional. She understood orders. Yes, sir. Megan, you're our medic, but you're also our communications specialist. Find the Thalans. Get them organized. They know the station better than anyone. They can be our eyes and ears. Megan adjusted her medical bag. What about you, Captain? Jake picked up a modified plasma cutter, its safety interlocks removed. I'm going to do what humans do best. I'm going to hunt. Lisa's voice came through the intercom again. Approaching Sanctuary 7. The Krell ship is docked at the main port. They're hailing us. Jake moved to the bridge. Through the viewport, he could see the research station slowly rotating against the stars. Lights flickered along its hull. Some sections were dark. Battle damage or deliberate sabotage, he could not tell which. The Krell ship was a Predator's vessel, all sharp angles and weapon mounts. It dwarfed the Liberty's dream. Jake felt his stomach tighten. They were really doing this. 4 cargo haulers against trained warriors. Put them through, he ordered, forcing his voice steady. The screen flickered. A Krell warrior appeared, his face angular and reptilian. Scars marked his scaled skin. His eyes were cold and confident. This was Krax, the raid leader. Jake recognized command when he saw it. "Supply ship," Krax said in Coalition Standard, his accent thick. "You are early. Or very late." Jake put on his best merchant captain face. Friendly but cautious. "We're scheduled. Had some engine trouble that delayed us. Didn't expect to see military vessels here." "This station is under new management," Krax replied, showing teeth. "You will dock at Port 7. You will bring your manifest. You will not transmit any messages. You will cooperate. Understand?" Jake nodded slowly. "We're just cargo haulers. No trouble from us?" Krax studied him through the screen. Jake kept his expression neutral. Inside, his heart pounded. The Krell was evaluating threat levels, deciding whether to just blow them apart or take them hostage. Hostages were useful. Hostages could be ransomed or sold. "Doc," Krax finally decided. "Any deviation from instructions and we destroy your ship." The screen went dark. Lisa let out a breath. He bought it. "We're clear to dock." Jake returned to the hold. Ben and Megan were making final preparations. They looked at him with questions in their eyes. "We're in," he told them. "They think we're easy prey. Let's make them regret that assumption." The Liberty's Dream slid into dock with a gentle thud. Clamps engaged. Atmosphere equalized. The airlock light turned green. Beyond that door, Krell warriors waited. Beyond that door, 200 Thalans needed rescue. Jake checked his improvised weapons one last time. He thought about Earth, about humanity's long history of facing impossible odds, about all the times humans should have died out but refused to quit, about the stubbornness that let them survive ice ages and predators and plagues. The Krell thought they were raiders. They thought they were predators. They thought they were at the top of the food chain. They were about to meet something from a death world. They were about to learn what real predators looked like. Jake opened the airlock. The hunt began. 3 Krell warriors met them at the airlock. They carried plasma rifles and wore light armor. Their scales caught the station's fluorescent lighting. They looked dangerous. They looked confident. They looked like they had done this 100 times before. Jake raised his hand slowly, making himself look harmless. Behind him, Ben and Megan did the same. They walked forward into the station, unarmed and compliant. "Perfect victims." The lead Krell gestured with his rifle. "Move, cargo hold. Commander wants to see what you carry." They walked through the corridors of Sanctuary 7. Jake cataloged everything. Security cameras disabled, emergency panels accessible, air vents large enough for humans. The station was designed by Thalans, who were taller and thinner than humans. That meant more space to move, more room to hide. He spotted Thalan civilians huddled in a laboratory. 20 or more guarded by 2 Krell. The Thalans looked terrified. Their 4 eyes tracked the humans with desperate hope. Jake made eye contact with one. "Wait," he tried to communicate silently. "Just wait." They reached the cargo hold. Krax waited there, examining a data pad. He looked up as they entered. His eyes swept over the 3 humans with dismissive assessment. Small, weak, no threat. Medical supplies. Krax read from the manifest. Protein supplements. Water filtration units. Boring cargo. "That's what we haul," Jake replied evenly. "Boring but profitable." Krax tossed the pad aside. "You have bad timing, human. This station is ours now. You and your crew are hostages. Behave and you might live," Jake nodded slowly. "We'll cooperate." "No trouble." Behind Krax, Ben's fingers twitched. He was standing near a data terminal. Jake saw his engineer's eyes flick to it, then away. Good. Ben had a plan. Krax turned to his warriors. "Take them to holding. Lock them with the others." He paused, considering. "Actually, wait. Human, you're the captain, yes?" "That's right," Jake confirmed. "Then you'll help me access your cargo systems. I want inventory." "Anything valuable?" Krax smiled, showing sharp teeth. "Your cooperation buys your crew safety." This was the opening. Jake stepped toward the terminal. "Sure, I'll help. Just don't hurt my people." As Jake moved, Ben stumbled. Clumsy. He caught himself on another terminal, his hand slapping against it. "A maintenance terminal," Jake noted. Ben straightened, apologizing. The Krell guards laughed at his awkwardness. They did not see the data spike Ben palmed. They did not see the rapid code he had uploaded in that fraction of a second. Ben had just given them access to Sanctuary 7's entire infrastructure. Jake worked at the cargo terminal, deliberately slow. He pulled up inventory files, making it look difficult. Krax watched with impatience. The other Krell guards stood at ease, weapons lowered. They were relaxed, confident. This was routine for them. Megan suddenly gasped. She pointed at nothing. Is that smoke? Every Krell head turned. In that instant, Jake moved. His hand shot to the maintenance tool on his belt. Modified, weaponized. The plasma cutter screamed to life. He swung it in a tight arc at the nearest guard's rifle, cutting through the weapon's power cell. The cell exploded. Not dangerously, but loud and bright. The Krell warrior stumbled back, blinded. Ben was already moving, tackling the second guard. They went down together. Megan threw her medical bag at the third guard, then dove for cover. Krax roared and raised his rifle. Jake rolled behind cargo containers as plasma bolts seared the air. He came up running, moving fast. The station's layout flashed through his mind. Left corridor, then right. Maintenance access was 3 doors down. Behind him, chaos erupted. Ben activated the station's fire suppression system in that section. Foam sprayed everywhere. The Krell cursed in their language, trying to aim through the white clouds. Megan ran the opposite direction, deliberately drawing fire away from Jake and Ben. Jake reached the maintenance access. The door was locked. He sliced through the control panel with his plasma cutter. The door slid open. He vanished inside just as Krax's warriors rounded the corner. The maintenance shafts were cramped for Thylans. For humans, they were perfect. Jake crawled through the darkness, his modified tool providing light. He accessed his comm unit. Ben, status. Ben's voice came back, breathing hard. In the vents. Got 3 Krell chasing me. Also, I uploaded our surprise package. You've got full station control. Sending access codes now. Megan? Jake called. Made it to the medical bay. Found 6 Thylans. They're helping me prepare supplies. Captain? They know where everyone else is being held. Jake checked his data pad. Ben's codes worked. He now had access to environmental controls, security doors, sensors, and communications. The station was his to command. He pulled up the security grid. 15 Krell total. 5 were now unconscious or injured from their initial encounter. 10 remained active. They were spreading out hunting for the humans. Time to change the rules of engagement. Jake accessed the environmental systems. The Krell liked narrow temperature ranges. He pushed the station's heat up 5 degrees. Not enough to be dangerous, just enough to make them uncomfortable. Then he started messing with the lights. Corridors went dark. Emergency lighting kicked in, bathing everything in red. The Krell could not see well in red spectrum. Their advantage was gone. Next, he sealed random sections. Doors locked and unlocked in patterns. The Krell found themselves cut off from each other, isolated. They tried to regroup, but the station itself fought them. Jake watched through security cameras as confusion spread among the raiders. They were used to easy targets, scared civilians, simple smash-and-grab operations. They had never fought an enemy that controlled the battlefield itself. Ben's voice crackled through the comm. Captain, releasing the drones now. The loading drones activated. Modified and reprogrammed, they moved through the corridors, making noise and creating movement. The Krell saw threats everywhere. They fired at drones, wasting ammunition. They chased mechanical decoys while the humans repositioned. Jake used the chaos to move. He crawled through maintenance shafts, dropping into sections behind Krell warriors. His first target was isolated, trying to force open a sealed door. Jake dropped from a ceiling vent, his plasma cutter already swinging. The warrior went down without firing a shot. He took the warrior's comm unit. Now he could hear their communications. Krax was furious, barking orders that his scattered team could not follow. They were confused, disorganized. The station had become a maze of locked doors and false targets. Megan's voice was calm when she reported in. I've got 15 Thylans with me now. We're using service corridors to evacuate civilians. They know this station better than the Krell do. Good, Jake replied. Get them to the docking ring. Keep them out of sight. Ben added his own update. Just took down another Krell. Used one of those sedative traps Megan prepared. He's alive, but he'll sleep for hours. Jake moved to the next target. 2 Krell warriors moving together for safety. Smart, but not smart enough. He sealed the corridor ahead of them and behind them. Then he cut the lights. They fired blindly into darkness while he watched through infrared on his datapad. When they stopped shooting, he flooded the corridor with coolant gas from the environmental systems. The temperature dropped fast. The Krell stumbled, their cold-sensitive physiology failing them. Jake dropped from the ceiling between them. 2 quick strikes with his improvised weapons and they were down. Hours passed. The hunt continued. The humans moved like ghosts through the station. They used every trick, every advantage. Ben hacked systems. Megan organized Thalen civilians and set traps. Jake systematically took down Krell warriors one by one. The Krell began to panic. They had started with overwhelming force and confidence. Now they were being hunted. Their numbers dwindled. Their communications filled with fear and anger. They could not understand how 4 humans were dismantling their entire operation. Krax finally understood. He gathered his remaining warriors, 6 in total. They fortified a position in the central operations room. Defensible. They would make their stand there. Jake watched through cameras. This was the moment. They could wait out the Krell, but reinforcements might arrive. They needed to end this now. He opened a channel. Krax, this is Captain Morrison. I'm giving you one chance to surrender. Silence. Then Krax's voice tight with rage. Human, you think you have won? We are armed. We are ready. Come and face us, Jake smiled without humor. I don't need to face you. I control this station. I control your air. Your heat, your doors, your ship's systems. You're already beaten. You just don't know it yet, he waited. Let that sink in. Let Krax understand the position he was in. So here's what happens next, Jake continued. You surrender. You get fair treatment under coalition law, or you keep fighting. And I show you what humans do when they take things personally. Your choice. You have 60 seconds, Jake cut the channel. He looked at the security feed. Inside operations, the Krell warriors looked at each other, at their leader. At the walls that had become a prison, the hunt was over. Now came the reckoning. The 60 seconds stretched like hours. Jake watched the security feed, his hand hovering over the environmental controls. Behind him, Ben and Megan waited, weapons ready. They had reunited in a secure corridor near operations. If the Krell refused to surrender, things would get messy. On the screen, Krax paced. His remaining warriors watched him with uncertain eyes. They were trained raiders, experienced fighters. But this had gone wrong in ways they could not comprehend. 3 humans had destroyed their operation in less than 6 hours. 40 seconds. Jake could see the debate happening in operations. Krax's second-in-command said something sharp. Krax snapped back. Another warrior gestured at the sealed doors. They knew they were trapped. 20 seconds. Krax slammed his fist against a console. Rage and frustration warred across his scaled face. Jake recognized that moment. The instant when pride had to yield to reality. When a warrior had to choose between honor and survival. 10 seconds. Krax straightened. He spoke to his warriors. One by one, they lowered their weapons. It was done. The comm crackled. Human captain, Krax said, his voice carefully controlled. We surrender. On one condition. You guarantee our safety. No execution. Coalition law only. Jake closed his eyes briefly. Relief washed through him. Agreed. You'll be treated as prisoners of war under coalition regulations. You have my word. Your word, Krax repeated slowly. A human's word. I hope it means something. It does, Jake replied simply. Place your weapons on the floor. Back away from them. I'm opening the doors. He released the locks. The operations room doors slid open. Jake entered first, his plasma cutter visible but not raised. Ben and Megan flanked him, equally armed and ready. The 3 humans faced 6 Krell warriors across a room full of discarded weapons. For a long moment, no one moved. Jake studied Krax properly for the first time. The Krell commander was tall, nearly 7 feet. His scales were dark green with age. Scars marked his body, telling stories of countless raids. His eyes held intelligence and now, grudging respect. You are not what we expected, Krax said finally. The report said humans were dangerous, strong, tough. They did not say you were clever. That's because most species measure danger wrong, Jake replied. They look at claws and teeth. They measure strength and speed. They forget that intelligence is the deadliest weapon evolution ever created. Krax's head tilted, a gesture of acknowledgement. You did not fight us directly. You did not need to. You turned the station itself into a weapon. You made us afraid of shadows and sounds. This is not how warriors fight. No, Jake agreed. It's how humans fight. We don't have your speed or your claws. But we have this, he tapped his temple. And we have something else. Something you didn't count on. What is that? Krax asked. We take it personally, Jake said quietly. You threaten children. You terrorized peaceful researchers. You came to a place of learning and brought violence. That makes us angry, and angry humans are the most dangerous thing in the galaxy. Movement at the door interrupted them. Thalans began to enter, hesitant at first, then more confident. They had heard the surrender. They had watched through whatever systems Megan had accessed. Now they came to see their tormentors defeated. A Thalan elder approached, her 4 eyes bright with unshed tears. She was tall even by Thalan standards, her pale skin marked with age. She walked directly to Jake and touched his shoulder with her long fingers. "Thank you," she said in accented Coalition standard. "I am Elder Mora. I speak for Sanctuary 7. You saved us. You risked everything for strangers." Jake felt uncomfortable with the gratitude. "We did what anyone would do." "No," Mora said firmly. "Most species would have calculated the odds. They would have called for help and moved on. Humans calculated the odds and came anyway. That is different. That is special." More Thalans entered. Families reunited. Children clung to parents. Researchers embraced colleagues they thought they would never see alive again. Joy and relief filled the room, pushing away the fear that had dominated for hours. Cracks watched this with an expression that might have been confusion. "They show kindness to you, but they do not hate us. I see no anger in their eyes when they look at me." "Thalans don't hate," Megan explained, stepping forward. "It's not in their nature. They're incapable of violence, incapable of holding grudges. That's why they needed us. That's why we came." A young Thalan approached the Krell cautiously. A child, barely adolescent. She carried a medical kit. She looked at Cracks, at the burns and wounds his warriors had sustained, and began treating them. Her hands were gentle and efficient. Cracks stared at her, completely still. One of his warriors flinched when she touched a wound. She murmured something soft in Thalan, a sound that needed no translation. Comfort, reassurance, she was helping the people who had terrorized her station. "I do not understand," Cracks said, his voice rough. "We came to kill and enslave. We murdered her people. Why does she help us?" Elder Mora answered. "Because she sees suffering and must ease it. That is what Thalans do. We cannot hurt others. We can only help. It is our nature as violence is yours." Something shifted in Crax's expression. Understanding, maybe, or recognition. He had spent his life believing that strength meant the ability to hurt others. Now he stood in a room where the strongest beings were those who refused to hurt anyone. "And you humans," Crax said, looking at Jake. "You defend them. You fight for those who cannot fight. But you are killers. I see it in you. You could have killed all of us. Why did you not?" Jake met his gaze. "Because we're not monsters. Yes, we can kill. Humans are very good at killing. Earth taught us that. But we choose when to use that ability. We defend, we protect. We only become dangerous when someone threatens the people we've decided to care about." Ben spoke up from his position by the door. "You made a mistake, Cracks. You thought the Thalans were weak because they couldn't fight back. You forgot that being unable to fight and being undefended are 2 different things. They have allies. They have friends. They have humans who take it personally when someone hurts them." Lisa's voice came through the comm. "Captain, Coalition forces just dropped out of FTL. They're 12 hours out. I've sent them our situation report. They're ordering us to maintain position and await their arrival." Jake nodded, though she could not see it. "Acknowledged. We'll secure the prisoners and assist with station repairs." He turned back to Cracks. "You'll be transferred to Coalition custody. You'll stand trial. I expect you'll spend a long time in detention. But you'll be treated fairly. That's the human way, too. We fight hard, but we follow rules." Cracks straightened, his warrior pride reasserting itself. "I will tell them what happened here. Other Krell raiders will hear. They will know what it means to face humans." "Good," Jake replied. "Tell them. Tell them that humans protect their friends. Tell them that we don't forgive threats to innocence. Tell them that if they attack peaceful species, they'll answer to us." Elder Mora touched Jake's shoulder again. "You must rest. You and your crew. We have quarters prepared, food, whatever you need. Please accept our hospitality." Jake suddenly felt the exhaustion hit him. Adrenaline faded, leaving behind aching muscles and tired bones. Ben leaned against the wall, and even Megan's usual energy had dimmed. They had been running on fear and determination for hours. "Thank you," Jake said sincerely. "But first, we need to make sure everyone's safe. Medical checks for your people. Secure the prisoners properly. Repair critical systems." "Ever the protector," Mora said with what might have been a Thalan smile. Very well. We will work together. That is the proper way. The next hours passed in organized activity. Thalans and humans worked side by side. The Krell prisoners were secured in a cargo hold, guarded but treated well. Wounded were treated, both civilian and raider. Systems were repaired. The station slowly returned to normalcy. Jake found himself in a quiet observation lounge watching the stars. Ben joined him carrying 2 cups of something that smelled vaguely like coffee. Thalan tea, Ben explained. They insist it will help us recover. Tastes like grass clippings, but it's warm. Jake accepted the cup gratefully. They sat in companionable silence, 2 cargo haulers who had become unexpected heroes. You think this changes anything? Ben asked eventually. Out there, I mean. In the galaxy, Jake considered the question. Maybe. Maybe other species will understand what it means to have humans as allies. Maybe raiders will think twice before attacking peaceful stations. Or maybe nothing changes. Maybe we just saved 200 people and that's enough. Ben smiled. 200 people is a lot. 200 lives that continue because we decided to take a distress call personally. Yeah, Jake agreed softly. It is. Outside the viewport, stars burned eternal and cold. But inside Sanctuary 7, warmth had returned. Children laughed. Researchers planned future studies. Life continued precious and protected. And 4 humans from a death world learned that sometimes the most important thing you can do is answer when someone calls for help. 3 months after Sanctuary 7, Jake stood in a coalition military briefing room. The walls displayed star charts and tactical data. 20 officers from a dozen different species watched him with varying expressions. Curiosity, respect, unease. A Veltrax admiral, her blue skin marked with age, gestured for him to continue. So you use the environmental systems as weapons? You divided their forces. You made them fight the station itself. Yes, ma'am, Jake confirmed. The Krell expected a direct confrontation. We gave them confusion instead. Humans call it asymmetric warfare. You don't fight the enemy's strengths. You attack their weaknesses. A Crix officer, insectoid and precise, spoke up. But you violated 17 coalition regulations. You engaged in military action without authorization. You commandeered civilian equipment. You hacked secured systems. Yes, sir, Jake agreed calmly. We violated regulations. We also saved 200 lives. I'd make the same choice again. Silence fell over the room. The officers looked at each other. Finally, the Veltrax admiral spoke again. The Thalan Council has petitioned for all charges against you and your crew to be dropped. They have declared you honorary Thalans. This is unprecedented. The Thalans are grateful, Jake said, but we don't want special treatment. We'll accept whatever judgment the coalition decides. The admiral allowed herself what might have been a smile. The judgment is already made, Captain. All charges are dropped. Additionally, you and your crew are being awarded the Coalition Star of Valor. The ceremony is next week. Jake blinked. Ma'am, we're just cargo haulers. We don't need medals. Perhaps not, the admiral agreed. But the galaxy needs to see what you did. Other species need to understand what human protection means. And raiders need to know that attacking peaceful stations comes with consequences. Later, Jake found his crew waiting outside the briefing room. Lisa leaned against the wall, arms crossed. Ben examined a datapad. Megan sat reading medical journals. They looked up as he approached. Well, Lisa asked, are we getting court-martialed or what? Neither, Jake replied. They're giving us medals, Ben laughed. Medals? For breaking half the rules in the book? Apparently saving lives matters more than following regulations, Megan said with a smile. Who knew? They walked through the coalition station together, drawing stairs. News of Sanctuary 7 had spread. Humans stopping a Krell raid, 4 civilians defeating 15 warriors. The story had grown with each retelling becoming legend. A Thalan family approached them in the corridor. The father bowed low. Captain Morrison, we are from Sanctuary 7. Our daughter was saved because of you. Thank you. Thank you. The daughter, a young Thalan with bright, curious eyes, stepped forward. She held out a small crystal sculpture. I made this for you. It shows brave humans protecting Thalans, so I always remember. Jake accepted the gift carefully. The crystal caught the light, showing tiny figures, humans standing between Thalans and danger. It was beautiful and humbling. Thank you, he said softly. I'll keep this always. The family left, and Jake's crew stood quietly for a moment. That was why they had done it. Not for medals or recognition. For families like that. For children who could grow up safe. Over the following weeks, the impact of Sanctuary 7 spread through the galaxy like ripples in water. The Krell Empire issued a formal statement condemning unauthorized raids. Cracks in his detention testimony described human tactics in detail. Military academies added his account to required reading. Other peaceful species began requesting human security consultants. Not soldiers, but advisors. Humans who could teach defensive strategies, creative thinking, and how to turn environmental advantages into protection. Demand exceeded supply within a month. Pirates and raiders found their operations increasingly difficult. Where they once targeted soft civilian targets without fear, they now had to consider human response. Some stations had human personnel, others had humans nearby who might hear distress calls. The risk calculus changed. Jake received hundreds of messages, job offers, interview requests, speaking engagements. He declined them all. He was a cargo captain, not a celebrity. He had a ship to run and routes to fly. But he did accept one invitation. A gathering at the new Thalan Memorial on Sanctuary 7. The station had been fully repaired and upgraded. New security systems, hardened communications, better defensive capabilities. The Thalans had learned that peace required vigilance. Elder Mora greeted them at the docking port. She looked older but peaceful. The trauma of the raid was fading, replaced by renewed purpose and hope. "Welcome home," she said, and meant it. "You are always welcome here. Sanctuary 7 is your home as much as ours." The memorial was simple but powerful. A sculpture showing 4 human figures standing protectively around Thalan families. Names were inscribed at the base. Jake Morrison, Lisa Chen, Ben Rodriguez, Megan O'Neill. And below that, a phrase in both Thalan and Coalition standard. When darkness came, they answered. When evil threatened, they defended. When hope seemed lost, they persisted. This is the human way. Jake felt his throat tighten. It was too much. They had just done what needed doing. They had answered a distress call. Nothing more. But Mora understood his discomfort. She touched his shoulder gently. "You see it as simple. We see it as extraordinary. That difference is what makes humans special. You cannot see your own courage because it feels normal to you." That evening, they shared a meal with the Sanctuary 7 community. Researchers told them about new discoveries. Children showed them artwork and asked endless questions about Earth. Families thanked them over and over. As they prepared to leave, a message came through. An emergency broadcast from a mining colony called Hope's End. Structural failure. Trapped miners. Supplies running out. Coalition forces were 3 days away. Jake looked at his crew. Lisa was already checking their position. Ben calculated what equipment they could use. Megan reviewed emergency medical procedures for mining accidents. None of them questioned whether to respond. Elder Mora smiled sadly. "You must go. People need you." "Yes," Jake agreed simply. "They do." "This is what I meant," Mora continued. "Other species hear distress calls and calculate response times. They measure costs versus benefits. They make logical decisions. Humans hear someone calling for help and immediately start moving. You take it personally." The Liberty's dream undocked from Sanctuary 7. As they accelerated toward Hope's End, Jake settled into his command chair. This was their life now. Not just hauling cargo. Answering calls. Helping where they could. "Making a difference, Captain," Lisa said from the pilot station. "We're getting messages. Other ships are changing course toward Hope's End. Looks like we're not the only ones responding." Jake pulled up the communications data. 3 cargo ships. 2 passenger vessels. 1 small transport. All human crewed. All diverting to help. "The word is spreading," Ben observed. "Other humans are following our example." "Good," Megan said firmly. "That's what we should be doing. All of us, humans helping others, taking responsibility, being there when people need us." Jake thought about Earth, about a species that had clawed its way up from a dangerous world, a species that learned to survive against impossible odds, a species that looked at the hostile universe and decided to make it better. The galaxy had called Earth a death world. They had feared what humans might become, warriors, conquerors, destroyers. They had been wrong. Humans became protectors. They looked at gentle species and thought friends, not prey. They heard distress calls and could not ignore them. They saw injustice and took it personally. That was humanity's gift to the stars. Not violence, not conquest, but the stubborn refusal to let others suffer when you could help. The inability to walk past someone in need. The deep certainty that we're all in this together. ETA to Hope's End, 3 hours, Lisa reported. I'm pushing the engines as hard as I dare. 3 hours, Jake repeated. Plenty of time to plan. Then start thinking about mining equipment. What can we use? Megan, pull up everything on treating crush injuries and oxygen deprivation. Lisa, coordinate with the other ships. Let's work together on this. His crew responded immediately. Professional, competent, ready. They were cargo haulers who had become heroes without meaning to. They were humans doing what humans did best. Jake pulled up the emergency broadcast again. Listened to the fear in the caller's voice. Heard the desperate hope that anyone would help. He smiled. They had no idea that 7 human ships were racing to their aid. No idea that cargo haulers and transport pilots were already planning rescue operations. No idea that strangers were taking their emergency personally, but they would know soon. They would learn what it meant to have humans as neighbors, to have Deathworlders watching over the galaxy, to have protectors who answered every call. The Liberty's dream raced through space toward Hope's End. In its wake, 6 other human ships followed. And across the galaxy, the message was spreading. Humans take it personally, and that makes all the difference.